Welcome to the Network Plus Prepcast, your dedicated audio companion for mastering every objective on the CompTIA Network Plus certification exam. This series is produced by baremetalcyber.com. Domain 1 of the Network Plus certification serves as the launchpad for your entire journey through networking. This domain focuses on the foundational principles that support all other areas of study throughout the certification. Understanding these fundamentals is essential, because they appear everywhere, from how data flows across a cable to how security policies are applied at specific layers. Positioned at the very beginning of the certification scope, Domain 1 builds your mental framework for understanding everything that follows in later domains. Networking itself plays a central role in modern IT, serving as the invisible thread that connects devices, systems, and users. Every time a message is sent, a file is shared, or a service is accessed, it happens over a network. This domain introduces the essential concepts that explain how that communication works. From simple peer-to-peer connections to complex enterprise environments, networking allows systems to communicate, share resources, and function as part of a unified digital ecosystem. Networking fundamentals cover a wide range of concepts, but the overall goal is to help you develop a layered understanding of how technologies interact. This includes recognizing the basic building blocks like switches and routers, understanding the transmission media such as copper and fiber cables, and developing awareness of common protocols. These are not advanced configurations, but core knowledge elements that form the groundwork for network design, operation, and troubleshooting. Every network is made up of a few essential components, and understanding these is one of the first steps in Domain 1. You will explore nodes and endpoints, which include devices like computers and smartphones that participate in the network. You will also examine the links that connect these devices, such as physical cables or wireless signals. Finally, you will learn how control paths and data paths determine how information moves from one part of the network to another, forming the structure of all communications. This domain introduces several critical concepts that will appear again and again throughout your Network Plus studies. Two of the most important models, OSI and TCP/IP, are presented here to help you understand how networking functions are divided into layers. You will also explore different network types, from local area networks to metropolitan and wide area networks. Concepts like data flow, encapsulation, and addressing are previewed so you can begin developing the vocabulary and structure needed to study more advanced topics later. Understanding the difference between local and wide networks is a key part of this domain. Local networks typically involve devices that are physically close to each other, such as those in a single building. Wide networks, on the other hand, connect systems over large geographic distances. You will learn about the different types of links used in these environments, such as Ethernet cables for local areas and leased lines for wide area connection. The resource availability and configuration options also differ significantly between local and wide networks. Domain 1 follows a structured learning progression, beginning with simple concepts and gradually introducing more complex ideas. This approach ensures that foundational knowledge is in place before layering on advanced terms and processes. By understanding basic components first, like what an IP address is or how a switch functions, you can more easily understand how those components are used later in infrastructure, security, and operations. This domain builds the skeleton of your networking knowledge. As a preview of the core technologies covered in this domain, you will be introduced to the basics of IP addressing, both in version 4 and version 6 formats. You will also learn about different types of network cables and connectors, such as twisted pair, fiber, and coaxial. Packet structures will be introduced to explain how data is segmented, labeled, and transmitted across a network. While not explored in depth here, these technologies are outlined to prepare you for deeper study in later domains. To help you navigate the content, Domain 1 provides definitions for some of the most commonly used terms in networking. These include fundamental roles like host, client, and server, as well as key infrastructure devices like switches, routers, and gateways. You will also learn the distinctions between network types, including local area networks, wide area network. Understanding these terms helps build the language needed to describe and diagnose network environments with accuracy. You will also be introduced to the tools and models used throughout the certification. These include communication protocols like Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol, layered models like OSI and TCP/IP, and addressing systems like binary, hexadecimal, and dotted decimal notation. These tools are not only essential to the exam, but also vital for understanding how real-world networks are built, operated, and maintained. They form a toolkit you will return to in every domain that follows. Networking fundamentals are not just academic concepts. They reflect real-world environments that professionals work with every day. This domain explains how networks are connected in offices, homes, and data centers. It also highlights the kinds of job roles that rely on this knowledge, including network administrators, support technicians, and security analysts. Whether it's configuring a device or interpreting a diagnostic tool, every technical action depends on an understanding of the core principles introduced here. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. The official objectives for Domain 1 are clearly defined and focus on conceptual understanding rather than deep configuration skills. This part of the exam assesses your ability to recognize terminology, understand network types, and explain how communication happens between devices. The objective categories include key areas like common protocols, transmission media, and network topologies. Rather than requiring memorization of obscure commands, this domain emphasizes clarity on how and why networks are structured the way they are, making it a critical stepping stone for more advanced learning. One of the foundational learning patterns you'll encounter in Domain 1 is the idea of layered thinking. In networking, functions are often separated by tasks such as addressing, routing, or signaling. Layered design makes complex systems easier to understand, maintain, and troubleshoot by assigning specific responsibilities to each part of the communication process. Modular architecture promotes compatibility across different hardware and software, allowing systems to communicate even when built by different vendors. This way of thinking is repeated in many models introduced throughout the certification. Transmission media is another important preview topic in this domain, as it determines how data physically moves across a network. You will be introduced to copper cabling, fiber optics, and wireless technologies, along with their typical use cases and limitations. Signal behavior varies by medium. Copper is vulnerable to interference, fiber supports long distances, and wireless can be impacted by walls or distance. Understanding the role of media helps frame how networks are planned and explains why different environments require different hardware. You'll also get an early look at addressing and protocols, which are the backbone of how communication is managed. Binary addressing systems, like those used in IP version 4 and version 6, identify devices on a network. You'll learn the distinction between logical addresses, used by software, and physical addresses, like MAC identifiers. Protocols such as TCP and UDP are introduced here to explain how data is packaged, sent, and confirmed across a network. Each of these elements is explored more deeply in later domains, but their introduction here sets the foundation. Data flow in a network can happen in several directions, and Domain 1 helps clarify these modes. Unicast refers to one-to-one communication, where a single device sends data directly to another. Broadcast describes one-to-all traffic within a network segment, often used in address resolution processes. Multicast falls somewhere in between, sending data from one source to a defined group of receivers. These data flow concepts help explain how traffic behaves on a network and how devices decide where to send packets. For beginners, this domain is one of the most valuable because it builds the mental model for everything that comes later. It introduces the vocabulary used throughout the rest of the certification, ensuring that candidates understand what each term means before using it in technical context. It also teaches how to organize networking concepts into logical frameworks that support long-term retention. These mental structures make troubleshooting easier and allow learners to grow into more advanced topics with greater ease. What makes Domain 1 so impactful is how seamlessly it connects to every other domain in the certification. Security, for example, builds directly on the structures introduced here by applying access controls to data flow and device types. Network operations rely on understanding how devices are linked and how data is routed through them. Even infrastructure topics are grounded in the basic concepts of addressing, signaling, and media introduced early on. Domain 1 may be introductory, but its importance echoes throughout the entire certification. The learning approach for Domain 1 favors layering and reinforcement. Rather than memorizing long lists of terms, it encourages repeated exposure to core concepts using varied methods, listening, reading, and visual mapping. Reinforcing terms regularly and hearing them used in context helps solidify understanding. This domain is best approached as a network in itself. Each topic is a node, and the connections between them form your overall understanding. Building this internal map helps you navigate the more advanced material ahead. In summary, Domain 1 lays the groundwork for all future study within the Network Plus certification. It introduces the basic language, structures, and mental frameworks needed to understand networking as a discipline. By focusing on simple models, clear terminology, and logical organization, this domain gives learners the tools they need to succeed in both the exam and the real world. Everything in the certification builds on the key ideas found in this first domain, making it the most critical starting point for mastering networking fundamentals. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Network Plus Prepcast, your trusted audio guide to the CompTIA Network Plus certification. This episode was produced by baremetalcyber.com. For more cybersecurity podcasts, books, and resources, visit baremetalcyber.com. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cybersecurity Plus podcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com. And before you take the test, make sure to check out the practice questions in the book Achieve CompTIA Security Plus SY0-701 Exam Success by Dr. Jason Edwards. They cover every domain and are a powerful way to lock in your knowledge.